Welcome back to the Microsoft Sentinel Data Lake video series. In this video, we'll cover setting up Jupyter Notebooks and connecting them to your Sentinel Data Lake to query and perform actions against it. We'll start in the Defender portal on the home screen. Go to the Microsoft Sentinel blade under Data Lake Exploration and select Notebooks. This gives us the ability to create notebooks, which will be done by using Visual Studio Code. Unlike KQL queries, which are done through the Defender portal, Jupyter Notebooks are created in Visual Studio Code and use the Microsoft Sentinel extension as shown. I already have Visual Studio Code installed, but we'll go through installing the Sentinel extension. In a separate video, I'll demo a few quick samples of how to use notebooks to query and write information to the Sentinel Data Lake. For now, let's head over to Visual Studio Code. In VSC, we need to first install the Microsoft Sentinel extension to connect to, query, and write information to the Sentinel Data Lake. On the left toolbar, select the Extensions icon, which will open a flyout. Search for Microsoft Sentinel, which should be the first result that pops up. Select Microsoft Sentinel, and then select Install. If the Auto Update checkbox is checked, as new versions of the extension are released, Visual Studio Code is automatically updated with the latest extension. Make sure that Auto Update is checked, and we're all set. We now have the Microsoft Sentinel extension installed. This provides us with what's called the Microsoft Sentinel Provider Software Development Kit, SDK, which we will discuss along with a few handy tools. I'll close this window and go to the extension bar on the far left, where there is a Microsoft Sentinel Shield icon. This is the icon used in order to interact with the data lake in terms of looking at table schemas, current notebook jobs, and samples. Let's select that icon, which opens a few panes. There's a Lake Tables pane, a Jobs pane, and a Notebook Samples pane. I'm not signed into the data lake in VSC. To do that, I'll select Sign in to view Lake Tables, where I'll be prompted to sign in. I'll select Allow, and then I'll choose the identity that I'm going to sign in with. Since I've already signed into the data lake on this machine, my token's already available, and I'm able to sign right in. If you remember from KQL, there's a Schema Explorer. That's what the Data Lake Table panel here is for. System tables are shown along with their different categories. In Assets, just like in KQL, is the Entra Users table, for instance. It shows the workspace name and the ID for that particular table, along with the high-level schema of column names and data types. I also have the same type of information for the different workspaces that I have access to. In this case, we'll select Devices again, and Device Info, which has the same information about the workspace name, the workspace ID, and the general schema of information. I'll close these windows and tabs. In the center left pane is a list of active and inactive jobs. We'll discuss notebook jobs in a later video, but it shows which jobs are currently available. Then, lastly, the bottom left pane has notebook samples, which we'll discuss in a separate video, as there are some out-of-the-box samples provided for us to use to help us get going in terms of working with the data lake. I've opened a sample notebook file that I've created. This is what's called an IPYNB file, or an interactive Python notebook file. I've named it First Notebook. You can close the Sentinel extension pane to focus completely on the code. The interesting thing about a Jupyter Notebook is that it's a mix of Markdown, text, and code. It allows for providing great documentation, in addition to executable code. If I select the Markdown cell here, the Imports and Top-Level Variables cell, it's just Markdown. A double pound sign means it's a heading too, and we can type in additional comments and include images. Whatever can be done in Markdown can be done within this cell. If we expand this cell, we can do some basic imports and top-level variables. What this means is we'll be setting the stage for what the notebook's going to do. We have a couple of imports and some variables to use throughout the code. We're encapsulating the table names as variables. And then lastly, we'll be initializing this Microsoft Sentinel provider. This is key because this data provider variable is going to be used anytime we need to interact with the data lake. We still need to tell the Jupyter Notebook how to connect to the data lake. When I select Execute Cell or the play icon, a select kernel prompt will appear. Think of a kernel as a runtime. In this case, we want to connect to the Microsoft Sentinel kernel, and then it will ask what type of pool to connect to. In this case, there are a couple of different pools to choose from, whether it's a small pool, a medium pool, or a large pool. That determines the number of cores available to execute the code. I'm going to use a large pool. Now that the session has started, the environment is all set up. All right, so we created a notebook, installed the Microsoft Sentinel extension for Visual Studio Code, went over the benefits of mixing Markdown and code, and connected the Jupyter Notebook to the data lake. In the next video, we'll run a few queries and review some samples you can use. Get started with Sentinel. aka.ms/get_started/sentinel_data lake.